everybody. This is Lisa Naveau and Mark Ward. We're here with Common Grounds to talk to you a little bit about what's going on with men and women, and maybe hopefully shed a little bit of light on ways in which we can start understanding each other. We would love to hear some feedback from you, so if you find that this is interesting, please subscribe. I think we're going to start off this time talking a little bit about personal accountability. And my take on it is that I think we've been coming from the you do you, I do me mentality from a few places. Some of it I really like. I appreciate the you do you and I do me from a standpoint of it's my job to work on me. It's my job to fix me. It's my job to take care of me. It's my job to be personally accountable for the places in me where I need to grow. And it's, your job to take care of you. I think that it's been a little bit manipulated in some ways to people not needing anymore to actually be accountable because they're so busy doing themselves that they're like, you do you, and if I want to go over here and be this, I'm going to be it, and whatever that shows up like for you is the way that it goes. And I don't think that's originally where that came from. I think it came from having to walk on eggshells around people, or people taking all of their emotional baggage and dumping it on you and making you responsible for making them happy. I do it, or that, or reverse, thinking that it's our job to fix people. It's our job because we can't look at ourselves, so we're going to point the finger at and decide for and fix that other person, so that they are modeled in just the way that I just need you to be this certain kind of man, and I want you to show this certain kind of way, so I'm going to manipulate and control the heck out of you, and then I'll get the guy I want, and we'll just be so in love. I don't think that's the...
No, it's like having a robot.
Right?
You want someone who is their own person.
That's right.
No, I like all of that.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. This personal accountability subject has been a favorite of mine lately. For me, the more I am accountable for what is happening in my life, the more power I find. And it's kind of crazy. I've been in a place where I've been cheated on, I've been betrayed, I've been the betrayer in some ways as well, and neither side feels good. But looking back at those times where I was betrayed, initially the story for me repeatedly was, okay, this wasn't my fault, it has nothing to do with me, it has everything to do with her. And there's a lot of truth in that, and I think that's really healthy, so that you're not blaming yourself for what someone else's actions were. And I've come back around on it now to where I am looking for the spaces where I contributed to her choices.
Yeah.
Right? Again, it was her choice, 100%.
It takes two, but we're both complicit.
Right. 100% her choice to do whatever it is that she does to betray me, right?
That's right. She could have handled it completely differently.
However, how did I make it easier for her to make that choice? Did I make it easier by being a jerk? Did I make it easier by being unavailable emotionally or sexually or in whatever way? Did I make it easier for her by not speaking up when I saw behavior with other men that I didn't like? And again, it's not my fault that she chose certain things, but it is my fault that I chose certain things.
You played a role in the disintegration of the relationship.
Right.
And then how that fell apart is on her because of the way that she chose to voice or not voice how things were happening or making her feel. But then maybe it comes back on you on how you received what maybe she thought she was. I mean, it all comes back down to communication and how we're communicating what's happening for us. And that's the hard part, because men communicate one way and women communicate another way. And it's still happening. And right now it's really intense.
Yeah. And this is intricate. We have to be careful with this, right? Let's take a very sensitive subject, an abusive relationship, physically abusive. Could be the man or the woman. Believe it or not, men are abused more often than you realize. But let's just take the classic case of a woman who's being physically abused and the man who's abusing, right? I want to make sure it's very clear that it's not your fault that you're being abused. It was not your fault that you were being abused. And at the same time, if a woman is repeatedly in relationships where she's being physically abused,
Well said.
what choices is she making to attract the same man over and over again, right? Like, again, it's not your fault. His choices are not your fault.
No. And you don't deserve it.
No.
You know, and we're not
Definitely
taking away the pain that's happening, but there's a repeating pattern that needs to be addressed. It's how do I keep ending up back here? How do I keep ending up back here? And that's the question. You know, I went through that. I kept picking the same kind of guy. And I would fall in love so quickly. And, you know, I think that's part of the problem is the discernment in the beginning. It was chemically, you know, charged, definitely chemically charged. Visually stimulating, you know, powerful people, they have powerful energy in one way or another, and I didn't slow down and think it through. I didn't look around. I didn't even listen to my own instincts. And if you go deeper in that, when we're really looking at that, a lot of this has to do with the way that we're raised, to certain things we're exposed to in our upbringing, whether it's, you know, our families or our churches or our schools or something that happened that we're playing that story out over and over and over again. But that's on us to sit back. If we're in relationships where they keep breaking down, we can't just keep pointing fingers at other people.
Yeah.
We can't, because we keep bending up in the same spot, and there's no power there. There's no way to fix it if it's always their fault. How do am I just a victim to the world? I'm not.
Yeah.
In fact, stopping, maybe taking a breath, not dating for a minute and hearing the stories in your head, you'll realize that once you've gotten the voices out of everybody else, the voice inside is just yours. And then any choice you make, you can't blame anyone else. It's clarifying.
I like that you said there's no power in blaming other people. That to me has been the best part of it. I'm not trying to beat myself up when I try and find out how did I contribute to being betrayed in any way, or how did I contribute to being hurt or harmed or whatever it is. I'm not beating myself up. There's no shame in it, right? Like, you fell in love with a man who was abusive or who was whatever, right? There's no shame in that. We have all made poor choices when we're in love, and we probably will continue to, right? Like, we're not going to be perfect in that. But the power is found when you recognize that you have control over what your life looks like. Not control is a tough word, but that the way that your life looks is something that you can deeply influence.
Deeply influence, I like that. And I also like the fact that you found yourself using the word control, because I believe that we need to pull it back and say, actually, yeah, that's sort of where we've landed. How do I control my life? That one resonates with me. That's the, you know, hands off. I'm not a man hater. I'm not. And I'm going to say that you'll hear this throughout this thing, because I love men, but I haven't dated seriously for 3 years. And it's because I always find something wrong with them so that I don't have to get close to them.
Yeah.
They have 3 good dates. After the 3rd date, it's over.
I love that your language is talking about what you are doing. You're not saying, I don't date seriously because there's no good men out there.
No, it's not that. I would say that it's every single human being has something about them that needs some work, including myself. But I seek it out to find out what is their thing, and then make a decision that absolutely no way is that something I want in my life. I want control over my life. I want financial control. I want environmental control. I want emotional and spiritual control, and I don't want anyone in my head. So rather than, you know, relying on my own inner work and my own inner dialogue to manage that control, I control my external surroundings, including dating. You know, I control, and I don't, if I'm still doing that, then I haven't come to a place where I'm realizing that it's more of me having influence of my surroundings, not control. We think women have a tendency to think that it's our special love that's going to change the man that we meet. We see that, you know the story. We think there's so much potential in you, Mark. You have so much potential.
Yeah.
With my love and my specialness, I am going to love and nurture you to the place to where you are the man that I know you can be.
Yeah. Which is also telling me I'm not the man that you want right now, which is like, oh my gosh, like that doesn't feel good, right? Like that's a recipe for disaster.
And that's different than support. It's different than saying, what if you and I went out into the world knowing that we know that we both have stuff, you know, and that getting involved in a relationship is going to cause us to wake it up. So what we're choosing by getting involved with each other is we've known each other well enough and long enough, and we've engaged long enough that we trust that person. You know, I trust you, that when we find ourselves playing out our story in our broken places, that we have already signed our contract together to address it, as that's what we're doing. So that we can help each other. Not I'm going to love you until you're fixed, not you look at me like some crazy woman that just doesn't have her mind together, and man was she screwed up when she was a kid. You know, letting all of that go and understand that there's no one's perfect. You know, it's and sometimes it's, if we can walk into it with an acknowledgement, and that's personal accountability.
It is, and I like creating that agreement ahead of time. This is how things are going to look. And we have to remember, like, our partner's going to fail at this, and we can't expect them to be perfect. And if there's something that's not working for you, it's your responsibility to speak up. At the very least, to speak up, or to do something to help to change it. It's not your partner's responsibility.
That's right.
And if there is something that you feel that you want them to do differently, ask them to, invite them to. Don't demand it. You know, if you're demanding it, it's almost a you know, give or take, like, if you don't do this, then what?
Right.
Like,
yeah, and then what are the consequences, and how often do you really want to have to follow through with it?
Right, and who wants that relationship anyway?
And I'd like to address commenting on what our needs are. I think when we're in the heat of our breakdowns with each other, a lot of times there's two different types of personalities that tend to be attracted to each other. Some people go within, some people are without. Some people think quickly on their feet while they're engaged in things that feel tense and maybe even have conflict. Some people don't. Some people need to absorb all of it, step back for a minute, relax into it, which I think is actually a healthier way to do it, because you're not being emotionally charged. But actually giving space to that, I think, from a communication standpoint, talking about it when you're no longer hurt, angry, upset. So, you know, one of the complaints was, well, why didn't you say it when it was happening? And it's, for me, it was because I honestly think I was disassociating when it was happening.
Yeah, you didn't recognize that you couldn't even put words to it.
I couldn't. And some of it was so in my face, you know, and reverse, you know, I would be the same way. It's like, why aren't you answering me? Why aren't you responding? You've got this blank stare on your face. You're driving me nuts.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not effective. That's violent. You know, and the people that are sitting on either side of it, like, I need to be able to communicate in the way in which it works for me. And if you will be patient with me and I am patient with you, then we can come to an agreement when we do enter these places, that I know that you're struggling, or you know that I'm struggling, or you don't like this, or I don't like this, that we can put it out there in a way that sounds palatable, and then remove ourselves from it without a need for a response and a reaction right away.
Yeah, I like that. You know, because we're talking about accountability, and oftentimes what I've done, my most frequent mistake in arguments or discussions or whatever they are with someone that I love is I can tell that they're upset. Maybe I've hurt them, maybe the conversation isn't going well, and I take on responsibility for their pain, right? Like, maybe I didn't mean to hurt them, maybe I'm innocent in the whole thing, maybe not. But the point is that when she's suffering, I sometimes can't handle it. Like, historically, I haven't been able to handle it. And so I want to fix things. I want to solve things right now. I don't allow her to not be okay for a while. And that can be suffocating. It can be detrimental. It's demanding, violent in a way, to say, hey, we need to fix this now because I can't handle the fact that you're suffering.
Yeah, your parents do that too.
Right. So not only, like, when we talk about responsibility, it's not just taking responsibility for our stuff, but it's making sure that we stay in our lanes and we don't take responsibility for their emotions.
Right.